Our block stars are all over the weekend pay-per-views, but they did not steal the headlines. We're going to be talking about everything they were involved in, as well as that AEW media scrum in just a second. Stay tuned. This is WrstlXtra.
Yo, this is WrstlXtra. I'm your boy, A Dazzle, the Black Wrestling Advocate. Of course, as always, joined by my tag team partner, Mex, the WrestleManiac, if you will. And yes, you see him right there. It is the man from the Faction Show, Gerard Bonner. Guys, what is good? It's been a busy weekend. Worlds collide all out. Clash at the Castle. Now, let's talk about Clash at the Castle very quickly, because this guy, Mex, he was there in the flesh.
Nice.
Little backstage, all the little extras, and he got to talk to Bianca. But I shouldn't even be talking to.
Wow.
Talk to Bianca Belair, and I didn't. I don't understand. And it's the second time he has as well, which is even worse. Mex, just give me a little quick rundown of what your weekend was like. Did you get any exclusives from anybody? What was the experience of being part of the press gang at Clash at the Castle?
It was amazing. It was a really good experience. I'm very grateful to kind of get that very late in the day call up. Oh, do you want to come and do this? So
Right.
yeah, made our way to Cardiff, and everyone was very, very nice, welcoming. These things can often be very, like clicks and stuff like that. But yeah, it felt good. And once we got to, I think it was Friday morning, we were doing the actual media junket. Gunter was there with Ludwig and Drew McIntyre, Rhea Ripley. Only two people I didn't speak to. Street Profits were there. Bianca Belair was there. Liv Morgan. You just look around the room and you said, like, obviously this is our outlets in Britain anyway for this kind of stuff. And apart from obviously myself, Skillet, Ace, the Kick Out Gang, that was it. That we were representing Black British media, like in front of a room full of like the regular, like middle-aged white men usually. So it was just good to see, at least even in our minority, we're in here, we're in the building, sort of thing. And we had our interviews with the stars. Like you said, Bianca Belair, second time I've got to speak to her. She wasn't best pleased by the time she got to us, because just before us she had to play a game with another outlet, and they were asking her about, like, they'll pop up a picture from SmackDown Here Comes the Pain, which was years ago, of like renders of superstars, and said, who's this superstar, who's that superstar? And she didn't do very well with the game. Obviously we know she's not a fan like that. Right. So she struggled a bit. So by the time she came over to us, she had her back up a bit. And then wise old me went and asked her about Sasha Banks and Naomi. And she looked at me like, don't ask me about them guys. But yeah, so it was good. And Street Profits, we ran out of time. They're very, quick. You have 3 minutes to this person, 3 minutes to that person. I actually had a wrestle and drip scenario for a Montez Ford that we didn't get around to it, unfortunately. But yeah, it was really good. And then of course we had the show on Saturday, which was just to just be in attendance of, like, literally British fans craving for something of this size for 30 years, as they said. By that time we were all behind Drew to win. But when Roman retained, my God, did I pop, man? Yeah. Like, I was telling A Dazzle, like, I've been fighting with YouTube to upload my vlog for the past day or so. When that's up, like, you see me screaming like a girl when Roman retained. Like, the screws I got, and people were cussing. I'm not even gonna repeat what they were saying to me, like, and they literally, after the main event, literally once it was pinned, they came across and they rushed us out of where we were sitting, so we can go to the press conference. I was very lucky I was escorted out of there. Let's just put it that way.
Wow.
Because the way me and Skillet popped for Roman winning, the insults we were getting hurled at us and stuff. Yeah, the security just said, come, we need you to go over there. I was like, thank God. All right, cool.
Wow.
But yeah, it was a very, very good weekend. I had a lot of fun.
With you guys being like the only black British outlet and whatnot, when because I saw a picture, of course, that you uploaded with you and Bianca, and Bianca's there smiling, and then there was another picture that I saw pop up where I'm guessing it's probably part of that little game that she was part of, where she didn't look best pleased with the white guy who was speaking to her. Did the Street Profits or Bianca ever kind of make any comment or anything to you guys being the only ones there, or did that kind of just pass them?
Not a comment per se, but you could see just the regular kind of they're relaxed amongst their own sort of thing. Yeah, which it was the case until I asked Bianca about Sasha Banks and Naomi. Yeah, she, I wasn't trying to kind of talk so much about Clash at the Castle because, as journalists would know, you need to get the scoop and they need to put it out straight away.
Right.
Everyone there's probably asking the same question. So I was just having a conversation with her. I was congratulating her on her achievement with her new representation and stuff like that. And if she ever thought that this is what wrestling would lead her to. And yeah, it was just a really cool, relaxed conversation. The Street Profits they're just excellent entertainers. And I'll say again, like if anyone feels like Dawkins hasn't got a lot to offer, Dawkins is that guy as well. He definitely is that guy as well. I know Montez looks at the whole package, but Dawkins is that guy. On Thursday night when I got there, Dawkins was out on the town having some drinks, had some female company. That's all I'm saying. Like, yeah, but he was having a good time. So yeah, it was good stuff. It was good stuff.
Okay, cool. That's amazing. I'm guessing, will we see any of the footage from your interviews in your vlog, or is that going to be more of what?
It won't be in the vlog, but I'll put them on my channels and stuff once I've got them. Yeah,
guys, just make sure you follow, of course, WrestleManiac UK on YouTube for all of that exclusive stuff. Yes. But let's get back to talking about the weekend that was just full and jam-packed. It kind of happens, maybe three times a year, to where we get a weekend of both WWE and AEW big shows in the same weekend. So I don't know if you guys, Mex was telling me he didn't get much sleep. I didn't get much sleep either.
Me either.
Keep up with everything and all that kind of stuff. So let's get into it. Let's kind of hit Clash at the Castle first, as we're already there. Mex mentioned about obviously being there in the spectacle of it all. We waited 30 years to have a show in the UK, or a big stadium show in the UK. The last one was SummerSlam, I believe it was. That was ages away. Ages away.
30 years ago, 92.
Yeah. That's like 2 generations of wrestling, basically. Did it live up to the hype? We know that there were a few results that we probably, as British people, probably wanted and didn't get. But were we really expecting Roman to win? But going to our Black Stars, obviously, it was only the Street Profits and Bianca that were active. With Bianca's match, I kind of felt as if before we even got to there, I wasn't sure why we were having a 6-woman match. Maybe it was a way to throw all the ladies in to get them on the card or whatever else. Do you feel there was any significance to the match now that it's happened and moving forward? Because obviously we saw Bayley pin Bianca. Are we getting something more from this? Did it need to happen that way? I'll go to Gerard with that one first.
I will say this. I think it was to some degree shocking, just because we've seen Bianca on this incredible roll for a long time. It was almost like she can't lose. And in a 6-man tag, you would think, or 6-person tag, you would think Bianca wouldn't take the fall.
Right.
But with that said, I think this was the first significant win of Bayley's return. And, right now in this Triple H era where history actually matters and continuity actually matters, we've got a story to build from here. I mean, if we remember when Bayley was injured, she was injured in preparing for a big title match with Bianca.
Right.
And so now inserting her back in the picture where she left off with Bianca and getting a pin now gives this story an opportunity, because the truth of it is there wasn't another real challenge for Bianca at this point. She's beaten pretty much everybody they have for her on Raw, so she needs another challenger. And we've been talking about this in multiple spaces, the idea of a babyface champion having to kind of fight against some odds is a good thing. And so we've been looking for a real challenge for Bianca's title reign. I think this is the challenge. And I think now we get a spot where we've seen Bianca do amazing things mainstream, but not necessarily have people who can challenge her well. I think this is that. So I think that's the purpose that this particular outcome served. And I think it's a good thing.
Mix yourself.
You guys said you hadn't watched Raw yet, so I don't want to spoil too much for you. But what it looks like they're going to kind of explore is a slight character change of Bianca. Definitely, like you said, Gerard, some struggle that she has to overcome. And Bayley, again, without saying too much, has kind of started planting the seeds of mind games to just rattle Bianca, sort of thing. Like, I've pinned you, but I never said I want your championship, but now you think that you need to prove something to me. Like, so it's just a nice little something. Again, something like you're saying, it's been missing with Bianca's reign. They've just been putting people in front of her, which we've never really believed she's ever going to beat, never going to lose to. And she just, gets rid of them next, gets rid of them next. Now it's all of a sudden, right, I've actually been pinned by this person. And now they're kind of messing with me, like, I'm laying out the gauntlet, but they're like, I'll get to you when I need to, sort of thing.
Right.
So, it's looking good for the next month or so in terms of Bianca.
This is what we have been waiting for like 2 years.
Yes.
Over 2 different reigns. Yeah.
Basically, just some kind of conflict for Bianca to, doubt herself. We've never had that. It's always been, as Mex always says, this whole I'm happy to be here. I'm glad I'm here, skipping down to the ring and all that kind of stuff. Even when she's got this massive match with like Becky Lynch, for example, and it became quite personal, she's still skipping down to the ring and just glad to be there and all the rest of it. So that's going to be very intriguing to see. That, I guess, is the only thing we can talk about with Clash at the Castle. Let's move our way over to AEW, specifically Chicago, where All Out happened. And a lot has happened in and outside the ring. It's crazy. We'll get to, we'll go through this in chronological order as well, as much as possible. So the first match that kicked off the show was this ladder match, the casino ladder match. Involved 8 people, and we had Dante Martin in there, Ray Phoenix, Penta, Roosh, Andrade,
Wheeler Yuta, and Claudio.
Cesaro, Claudio,
as well, of course. And then we had the Joker. Now, the very interesting thing was, obviously, when we had the 7 people that we knew of, they were in the ring and they were doing their thing. And then all of a sudden, they get bombarded by these guys in masks and all that kind of stuff. And I got excited because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, there's a black man climbing the ladder.
Right. That's exactly what I thought.
Can I tell you our reaction? No lie. Obviously, we recorded our watch along on the WrestlingX channel. Yeah. Obviously, he comes in, starts climbing the ladder. All these that are taking out everyone else, right? And the minute he reaches up to get the chip, and the space between his glove and his thing, everyone's like, he's got black hands, it's a black man. Everyone starts reeling off, Scorpio Sky, or is it Shane Taylor, or all these other people.
Right.
And then, of course, you can take it from here.
Of course. And obviously, he grabbed the big chip and revealed himself to be Stokely Hathaway. Now, that threw me. But then I saw the big tall guy, and I knew that was W. Morrissey. It had to be Morrissey. So far, Morrissey's the Joker, the 8th person. Lo and behold, some music plays. Another guy comes out. It was very obvious. It was revealed later on in the evening, but it was very obvious that it was MJF. Very obvious it was MJF. So I guess my question is now: we've been asking for the last 4 or 5 weeks what is going on with this whole Stokely thing? Recruiting Lee Moriarty, the Gun Brothers, and Ethan Page, W. Morrissey. Now we know for a fact he's with MJF, the returning MJF, big massive return, big massive pop for MJF at the end of the main event. I still don't actually have an answer to the question we've been asking for 5 weeks. Can one of you two help me out, please? Because I'm still struggling here.
Go on, Gerard.
Well, for me, I mean, his alignment now with MJF and all of this coming together, that this was all to pull a group together for MJF, made some sense to me, because the League of Misfit Toys that he had been going after made no sense at all as standalone moments. But if this was all a ploy to be able to support MJF, then it really kind of raises Stokely's stakes and his stocks, because now he's associated with one of the top guys in the company. Now, it does lend the question, what happens to his alliance with Jade? Because that kind of seemingly vanished during the night, which we'll talk about. And so I'm certain that Jade isn't associated with all of these guys. I don't think that just makes any sense. But I do think it raises Stokely's stock in AEW. Now, the ultimate question will be, and we'll find out probably Wednesday night, okay, how is this group going to work together on behalf of MJF? And is this just, we got the thing for MJF got what he wanted, and now we're back to whatever? So I think it's going to be another thing that takes some more time, but at least some of the dots got sort of connected with that, which I can appreciate.
Halfway there, I guess. As you said, it's certainly a group to support MJF. But it kind of, even with the guys that are in there, the Gun Club not so much, but with Page, Moriarty, W. Morrissey, I'm kind of like, not that they're the biggest stars on the planet, they're not. But at the same time, I'm still like, right, we could have done something with these guys separately. Do they really fit the misfits of support for MJF? It kind of doesn't match up for me just yet. Mex, what are your feelings on this whole thing, and where is this kind of going in your mind?
For me, I still don't like it. Like, I'm not happy. Like, it was good to see it, and it was a surprise and all of that. Yeah, but like, I just don't feel like this. I don't think MJF needs a faction. I mean, technically speaking, he hasn't even ended Pinnacle. Like, Pinnacle were all here teaming up the other day at the pay-per-view. Like, Pinnacle never came to an end. He just had beef with Wardlow. Like, now he's gone to start a new faction. Now, again, Stokely is who we're talking about. He's at the center of this, and he has called himself a publicist.
Right.
So at the same time, I feel like even if you wanted to use Stokely as the man while he's not in AEW, he's the one calling Stokely, look, I need you to round up a couple guys. I need a certain job being done. And we could have seen, Stokely maybe just approaching these guys and say, oh, I just need to have a word with you and all this kind of stuff. Not so much the business card and call me later and what it's been like. Just pulling guys aside, maybe they're having like a backstage interview. Let me have a word with you. Come. And then he just has a word, and then he assembles these guys that are going to basically do the dirty work. MJF does what he does and all of that kind of stuff. The fact we didn't see the faction at the end of the night after MJF's reveal doing like a big post beat down on CM Punk or something like that.
Right.
He should have taken the chip and handed a wad of money over to Stokely. Stokely can then divide that money against the hired guns, and he takes the chip and he walks off because he came out without them at the end anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, they can still kind of end the faction at this point without much more association come Wednesday and stuff. But like, I'd rather they're just not affiliated with him or Stokely. And I don't even know if I want Stokely back with Jade, because again, this is what we talk about with Mark. It's just Jade is a serious act, and all of this stuff, especially the people you're recruiting, aren't serious guys. So yeah, I'm a bit indifferent. I'm not too happy with it at the minute, but we'll see.
Yeah, I kind of don't really I'm not a big fan of it either, and I'm more so thinking of the individuals, as I said already, that have been recruited, because you had a whole section where Ethan Page is ranting about not being taken seriously, not being respected, not being on TV enough, and then the way you then you're gonna approach him, and we now know the conversation or whatever Stokely whispered in his ear is, "I want you to help MJF." Like,
or do we?
that wouldn't be a thing for me to say, all right, cool. That helps me now. That answers all my questions. That's gonna help me get the respect that I want and all the rest of it. Now I know MJF's a big guy, and one of the biggest stars in the company, but for especially Ethan Page very specifically, it doesn't make sense for you to recruit a guy like that who's craving to be a solo star to then do the dirty work of MJF. It doesn't quite make sense to me.
Well, I think it gives them opportunity to tell more of this story, which is what I think is tough. It's good and bad, right? Like, it leaves us with more questions than answers. If they come up with answers and help make it make sense, then that'll be cool, you know? So I think they've left some things to talk about. Now, I'm with you. I definitely think the pay-per-view should have ended differently. And I have a whole scenario in terms of how it should have ended that would have kept us talking, but apparently the scrum was going to destroy that anyway. But you know, I do think that this is a case where if they go ahead and make the pieces work, it'll be cool. They could have at least, I think, ended to your point. I think if this had ended with all of them standing in the ring, and I'll wait to give my scenario until we get to the match, but I'll just say they could have ended it differently, which would have caused us to have different questions and at least one or two more answers than we currently have.
I mean, let's go there. Let's go there straight away. Like, in your mind, how do you make sense of this? What answers would help make sense of this specific group of wrestlers helping MJF, and then it making sense in terms of that faction, Stokely being involved, and all the rest of it?
Well, I think by the end of the night, what should have happened, I mean, if Punk was going to win in Chicago, the moment that you get us talking is the lights go out, and then in the ring, he's either surrounded by this whole faction. Well, yeah, he's surrounded by the faction who beats him down. They just destroy him. And I mean, he was already beat down anyway. And then here comes the Joker to cash in his chip. The Joker cashes in his chips, has the match that night, wins the match, and then reveals himself after he holds the title up, boom, as MJF, and then they're all celebrating around him, and now at least we know that MJF really is connected to this faction. They've helped MJF become champion. We can then find out what promises MJF made to them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and we all go, yo, Punk lost in Chicago to the returning MJF. This is amazing. But to have the whole video that played, and then have it just turn out with MJF standing alone on the top of the stage. I mean, even the whole, I would have even saved the voicemail. I would not have played the voicemail until Wednesday night after he's won the title. He wins the title, comes out, and now he's saying, yeah, I'm holding the company hostage, and here's why. Play the voicemail. And now you know you got Tony by the sack at this point. And it's like, yo, you know what I mean? Like, that would have been, and again, and so now all of those guys who have issues because they aren't on TV, they aren't being used properly, they have a commonality now with MJF. It's the whole reason MJF left. And so now we are all going to fight this company, and specifically you, Tony. So we're taking the company hostage. Boom. At that point, it makes sense because all of these guys have that same issue. Moriarty's not being used well. Morrissey came over because he wanted to be used well. Ethan Page isn't being, like, all that's the commonality. And that makes sense.
You know what this sounds like? Retribution done right.
Precisely. Exactly. Even how they came out. It's retribution.
Very
done the right way.
Yeah. Max, are your feelings on how it probably should have ended? How do we make sense of this faction going forward with what we have at the moment?
That makes a lot more sense to me. Everything Gerard just outlined makes a lot more sense. And then, like we're saying, eventually it could be, okay, I assembled these guys together to get me to this plateau. I'm now world champion. So they're not my faction. Like, I just used them as a group to get to where I need to be, pay them off, or get, maybe he organized with TK to get them certain promises or something as well. I don't know. But it seems very much with the even with the voicemail, which at the time I thought that is brilliant. Like, this is so good. But they've put TK into it, and then obviously no one was to know what happened afterwards, and the media scrum happened. And now I don't even know how they're going to continue with that, because dumping TK in the middle of something like this, as you've done a deal with the devil ultimately. Even though he's been doing a deal with another devil backstage, so
that part.
But I going forward, I don't want to see them as a faction. Very much like, these are just my guys, a team of guys I got Stokely to assemble to help me get to what I needed to get to. So that's what I'll do it.
So now, as we kind of already mentioned, we have this, I guess, a bit of a conundrum or unanswered question as well as to what's happening with Stokely and Jade. Now, Jade was in a match defending her TBS championship against Athena. She came out on top. Relatively short match, decent enough, I guess. What's next? Because they even mentioned it in commentary about Stokely not being there and asking, is he still part of her whole thing? Now, we've mentioned before that as a quote unquote publicist, it doesn't necessarily mean he has to be with her every step of the way. It's not a manager. A publicist is, in the grand scheme of things, a publicist is just someone at the other end of the phone in many ways. So he doesn't always have to be there. There can still be that association. But this is wrestling. And we've already seen that from when he first came in, he's been with her near every single week, apart from the last maybe 2 or 3. It almost begs the question, was there even a point in him being there in the first place? And where do we go from here? What do we even do from here?
Am I cheeky to say that he's been a worse manager than Mark Sterling?
Yeah, and you know what? And I'd agree with that. And again, this is, I guess, the feelings that we have is more based on the booking, more so than Stokely himself, or Stokely as the person or whatever. And it's the booking. It just hasn't made any sense. It's gone from here to there to here to there. We've had, obviously he came out and he was a voice for a very long time, and then we had this whole thing with the baddie search, and he was the one that put Layla Gray in front of everyone and was trying to convince Jade that she's the girl to step in. And we've had this to and fro. It was Layla that took the brunt of Athena's vexation as well during that match. Kiera got away scot-free. It's kind of like we're just using. I almost feel sorry for Layla Gray, if I'm honest. At first, it was like, oh, she's gonna get some TV time, and she's getting that, of course. But then she's at the end of. It's almost like she's being bullied, and I'm just like, what is the point? And now the person who brought you in isn't even there to kind of help you out, make sense of you being there, or have you back or whatnot. What was that?
I mean, I would argue just quickly, I don't even think Jade needs a manager, right? No. But I thought even with Mark Sterling being the lawyer, this guy Stokely being the publicist, right? After all, this whole gimmick is the Jade brand, or that's how it started at least. So it's cool that she has these little people, little contacts backstage and in and around her. But maybe that's just literally what they need to return to being. And Jade is a year on since this probably all started. At least she's grown a lot more confident, star of the show, star of the division for sure. just make these guys like peripheral kind of guys in and around backstage. She needs something done, she goes to Sterling. She needs something else done, she goes to Stokely. And just disassociate her with all these kind of comedy-esque gimmicks around her.
Right. Gerald, what are your feelings on where Jade is in her, it's now 37-0. Does she need a manager in Stokely? Does she even need the baddies? That's another question I'm asking as well.
I think it depends on your perspective. The baddies really haven't helped her win matches. I mean, they've served as a degree of distraction. They're definitely not heavies like the Bloodline, and things of that nature. We certainly don't look at their abilities as equal to Jade, even though Kiera Hogan's a former tag champion in Impact and has done some significant things. So I think a couple of things need to happen. For one, if you're the publicist, I'll say this: their use of Stokely is bad. We've seen what Stokely can do in Ring of Honor, in NXT. So I think we all had an expectation like, yo, Stokely is going to kill this. You know what I mean? But if they don't give him stuff to do, so for instance, if he's the publicist, I would have been, as the publicist, making this noise about the interview she had with Complex and all the different spots that she's been able to do mainstream. That's what a publicist does. So he really, could speak to his worth with that. But I hate to say this, I'm not sure that they even understand what a publicist does or what it would do in this particular scenario. I think Jade, part of the reason they had somebody with Jade is to help her and shield her from a talking perspective. So she only has to come in and say a few words and then boom, she's getting better in that regard. So I think if you have the right person with her, they still can do all the heavy lifting. And then she comes in and says, a couple of things and we're all good. Are we fully ready for Jade to do all the talking? I don't know yet. Like we don't know. But Jade isn't one of those people that honestly needs to do a lot of talking. Like the spotlight on Jade is her look, is what she gets done in the ring. I mean, she is a magnet for stardom. There's no doubt about it. The problem that they're having there is probably a pure AEW problem, which is who do we even get? I mean, if Athena only goes 4 minutes and 20 seconds with her, who do you have now? That's the real problem here. The real problem isn't the ancillary people with the baddies. No. Okay, after the amazing entrance, which it was amazing, right? After the whole She-Hulk look, praise the Lord on high, right? He's doing wonderful things. And so my question now is, after we get past all of that, who do you have her fight? Right. And that's the real problem right now. We don't know who she's going to fight at this point because there's nobody that we can go, that's the one. If you beat Athena in 5 minutes, we don't need to see an Athena rematch.
No.
So I don't know.
And it was clean.
It was clean.
And it was clean.
That's the piece.
So for me, that should be done with if you're ending it in that way. That little rivalry that we've had for
and we waited months for that.
5 months.
Since the last pay-per-view. Double or Nothing is when Athena debuted in this segment.
Right.
Exactly. So yeah, the question is who's next? Do we even have an answer for that? Now we saw that that we had the four-way for the interim women's championship, and Toni Storm came out as the victor. Jade is still TBS champion. We kind of had this idea that maybe she was going to lose to Athena and then she would go after the AEW championship. But I think even with the 4 ladies that were involved in that, those are the 4 that are going to be on Toni Storm's back. I can't see it being anyone else. And of course, with this whole interim thing, they're just going to hold Toni Storm until, Thunder Rosa's cleared again. Yeah. So what even is next for Jade? Who's left? Statlander's out of the question. And even with the 4 ladies that were in that match, I don't see any of them coming for the TBS championship. Who else is there?
It's got to be a face. Shida's there. There's probably some other Japanese ladies that are there. Like I've said, for me to beat Jade was only ever going to be 2 people. One in Statlander, which it seems like they had ambitions for her to chase the world title at this juncture. So
Right.
yeah, that's why they ended up doing what they're doing. The other person's Willow Nightingale. And I don't see why you can't make it official. You've given her own T-shirt now, but you haven't signed her to AEW publicly. Sign her, bring her in at least at that level. Let the crowd, fall in love with just her personality and everything. Let her be the face that's believable, that can triumph over Jade, and get it. Because if it's not her, honestly, they're gonna have to hang that bad boy above the ceiling and have a ladder match and just let someone else pick it from there, because they can't pin Jade at this point. So she has to lose it in some type of multi-women match or something like that.
Right, and obviously not take the fall. I personally I like the idea of Willow Nightingale, but my feeling is that she is there for a Ring of Honor. She's been there, she's been there a few times, been on the show a couple of times. She's challenged Mercedes Martinez. She's still not cleared, but for some reason we don't have a ROH interim women's. Anyway,
no substitute teachers in Ring of Honor. Only in AEW do we have the substitute teachers. Yes.
Yeah, it baffles me. Again, this whole thing and everything that's happening at the moment with AEW, the cracks are really, really showing, and in a very, very bad way. In a very, very bad way. The last question I'm going to ask, actually, kind of surrounding Jade and Stokely, is Stokely better off? Would Stokely have been better off staying with Jade, or is he better off now with MJF? Is that more his thing than him being with Jade?
It's interesting. MJF can talk for himself, and I think we want to hear what MJF has to say. I don't know what Stokely says for MJF. I think we're going to have to wait to see what this looks like. I want to see what the reasoning behind this is, and that'll tell me if it makes more sense for Stokely to be with them, or if it makes more sense for Stokely to be with Jade. He's a talker. He needs to be with somebody where he can represent them well. I thought he could do that with Jade, and he potentially still could, but the question is what's going to happen here with this MJF piece. If they make it make sense, again, I see him speaking more for the rest of them than for MJF, because MJF doesn't need anybody to talk for him. I think Moriarty could, Morrissey could, Page could, but I don't think MJF needs somebody to talk for him. So we need to get some definition on what that is, and then we can determine if that's a better move for Stokely or not.
So are we saying that the general consensus really between us then is that this MJF thing is a one-off with all these guys involved, and then Stokely kind of has this faction or this group of guys where he kind of takes them under his wing and kind of tries to make some kind of deals and opportunities for these guys moving forward, and no association with MJF.
Well, maybe there is an association with MJF. I just don't think it has to be as strong as the others, because MJF doesn't need him. I think that's the thing. MJF hasn't had a manager or anybody representing him the whole time, because he's the best talker there in the company. So you don't need that for that. Now, if this is a case where Stokely comes back and says, "Look at the deal I negotiated for you," now we've got something. Because if he can negotiate that kind of deal for MJF, look what I can do for you. And now we call him the great negotiator, and that makes sense.
Mex, what are your feelings on kind of where Stokely is, where we should be, and this whole faction? Is it Stokely and MJF, or is it Stokely and these guys with, as Gerard said, this this track record, or this kind of pull of opportunity that he can bring to the other guys?
Yeah, maybe at best it should be Stokely and these guys, and help them. I would argue Ethan Page probably doesn't need a manager, but yeah, the rest of them probably could do with his help. But yeah, more than anything, I would just rather see this disbanded, and he just brought them together just for this job, and then he can go back to doing something, or maybe stay with someone like a Moriarty and help him in a way. But yeah, I don't know. They're too much of misfits.
Yeah.
Like, you know, factions usually look alike or similar values or something. It's literally like the misfit thing is throwing me. It's not how I like my factions personally. So maybe that's why I'm rejecting it. Maybe I need to try something new. Well,
yeah. Moving forward just a little bit. So we also saw the tag team champions, Swerve and Our Glory, take on the Acclaimed. Everybody, literally everybody, loves the Acclaimed. I'm definitely one of them. Have been for a very long time. I won't be doing the scissoring with nobody. But, you know, that part, just that part. Everything else, I'm here for it all. It was actually very disappointing. It was a great match. I absolutely loved the match. I didn't think it was going to be as good as it actually was.
Right.
It was very disappointing that the Acclaim didn't come away as winners in a very big way. But I think the one thing that I'm finding intriguing is this lack of cohesiveness between Swerve and Lee. So Keith Lee was ready to kind of be congratulatory to you know, the Acclaimed for you know, hard work and great match and all that kind of stuff and all that great sportsmanship. And Swerve was very much of the complete opposite. We've seen the same thing. We've seen them before kind of have this, you know, miscommunication. Is this what we do with them moving forward? Will this be the reason why they lose? Or could we see that kind of carry on as this, you know, almost this mismatch of personalities, but yet they still know how to win and retain their tag team championships, as it was mentioned as well, actually, in commentary. I think it was JR that said it. What is this complex partnership with these two going to look like? Gerard.
Next. Oh, okay. I'll say this. I think, first of all, it's an interesting dynamic that is just very, very different. We are used to our tag teams, you know, dressing the same, you know, having, you know, they go to catering together, they ride the road, they love each other. This is and why this is different is in previous tag teams, where we've seen people like this come together, like it seems like, okay, they're going to break up at any point. But these guys managed to still find ways to win.
Right.
That is a different dynamic than what we are accustomed to seeing. So in a weird way, I like it. And I think I got even more insight into how they actually behave during their interview in the media scrum. And it was just kind of like, oh, you guys really are two very different cats with two very different approaches to life. And somehow you make it work. Now, I will say what's interesting, and I'll be that guy. I didn't think the Acclaim should have won. And here's why. I think sometimes as wrestling fans, we're prisoners of the moment. So these guys are hot right now. Yes, they are. But let's just remember that it was just 2 weeks ago that the very same Acclaimed were fighting the Gun Club. The Gun Club.
Right.
And they had to be saved by Swerve and Our Glory. Right. So I can't see these guys who we didn't even take seriously 2 weeks ago now as our world tag team champions. And when you think about the fact that Bowen spent the last year in a wheelchair because he's injury prone, I don't know that he at this point is ready to carry the tag division. Now, if he can stay healthy for another, 4, 5, 6 months, okay, then maybe we revisit that particular conversation. But just because everybody's buying their t-shirts and they've got cool chants and we're digging into the raps does not make them tag team champions in a company that is very physical. Injuries abound in AEW, and there's a whole conversation about that. But if you're not going to be able to carry it, then we're going to have substitute teachers in the tag divisions too. And everybody's had the substitute teacher visit their class, apparently. So let's keep them out of the tag team division. So I think with that particular thing said, I think it was the right move for Swerve in Our Glory. Now, I also learned something during that scrum that I didn't necessarily realize, but I guess it's true. The idea, and I noticed it with the question that was asked to them. The question was, hey, you know what? The Acclaimed was super hot. Did you think about calling an audible and having, so let me get this straight. The media feels comfortable enough to ask these tag team champions to their face, should you have lost? Nobody asked Punk that. Nobody asked Tony Storm that. So the idea that you don't respect these brothers as legit tag team champions, that's problematic for me. And I'm glad they addressed that during that scrum, because while everybody's talking about the craziness and antics of Punk, I'm like, so the media doesn't really respect these guys as tag champs. That's a problem for me. I mean, they won the titles fair and square. You know, I will say this. I think it's another problem that when we think of tag teams in AEW, we think the Bucks, FTR, everybody else. That's wrong if they're going to be your tag champs. Now, if it's going to be like this and then this, then put the belts on these folks. But if you're going to have the belts here and there's not a second set of tag titles, then they need to be looked at because when Hangman and Kenny were tag team champions, nobody said, I don't know. Nah, they beat the Bucks. Everybody viewed them as great champions. We didn't do this to them like it's being done to Swerve in Our Glory, and that's not fair.
Max, with the media scrum, the whole thing was just crazy. The whole
crazy.
Give me a bit more kind of insight information as to what happened with Swerve and Lee, and how it makes you feel as them as a tag team kind of moving forward in AEW.
I think Gerard hit the nail on the head. Like, I think they can almost as well feel that they're not respected. Obviously, Acclaimed were super over in Chicago, and they were even getting booed. Keith Lee and Swerve, and obviously when the match finished and he went to kind of show their solidarity by doing their finger action to one another, it was more or less like the crowd booed that as well. They didn't want to see it and all of this kind of stuff. Then in the media scrum, you know, Gerard mentioned one of the questions that was asked. Another question was asked about, you guys just keep, you know, taking each other out basically. And I think Swerve just practically shut it down and said, but we won, didn't we? Like, so what does it matter, sort of thing. Keith Lee, you know, diplomatic as ever, eloquent as ever in his approach, was shutting down some of these questions with just using his intelligent and fascinating demeanor, sounding very smart, but he was basically telling them, you know, put a sock in it, sort of thing. I don't feel they feel respected. And we went through this, I think it was 2 weeks ago when we spoke about their run. And, you know, 2 weeks after becoming tag team champions, they announced the trios division. And everyone became excited about this trios division that you've been promising, because we all knew that was going to be the comeback of Kenny Omega, so on and so forth. And then they've had one title match since then, one defense since then. Obviously, this weekend being the second, against a non-ranked private party on Rampage. Like we're saying, you're not treating these guys like tag team champions. Anywhere that I've ever seen multiple tag titles in one company, this is the premier title. Trios, junior heavyweight, all follows after this one. But you're ranking these guys somewhere, like you literally just made their tag team the whole segment of how they got to the pay-per-view just a week before. They came and saved the Acclaimed. For what reason? They came and said they loved the Acclaimed. The Acclaimed said we're uncrowned champions, and that now we're at the pay-per-view. And like you said, they probably put on match of the night. If not them, it was the trios title match. But they're not respected, and they don't feel respected. And even this whole division, like, I still don't understand why FTR have been number one ranked and not had their match since maybe February. So right now they're just on it's their turn to hold the belts. Champions, I don't know if we can call them champions. They're champions in title, but they're not treated like champions. So it's sad to see.
It is very sad to see. I mean, as you've said, as we've said many times here as well, is that with the way it's happened, with how things have gone for them since then, there's no feeling of any kind of prestige. There's no real prestige going on. It's like, but what I love about both guys is it's almost like they're taking this as it's their responsibility and not so much booking. It's up to them to do whatever they need to do, whether that be in the ring, whether that be the demeanor that they have, when coming to the ring and all that kind of thing. And it shows how great both guys are. But again, it is very, very obvious to see that this trios thing is now the new tag team championship.
Yeah.
This is now the heavyweight tag team championship, and the tag team championship is now the junior heavyweight tag team championship, so to speak.
At least as the elite hold it. When the elite don't have it anymore, it will probably switch and correct itself. But yeah,
possibly. But then, do you see that happening if the elite lose while Swerve and Lee are still champions? Will that still actually happen? For me, it is still a bit of a, it's a Swerve and Lee problem, and not so much a tag team problem, if that makes sense. So yeah, we have to make this big thing about this new championship being the trios. So in a way, I'm not too mad, because you kind of have to make sense of this new thing and make it as big as possible. Maybe a little bit too big, but as big as possible. If the elite lose to whoever it is, maybe House of Black, Death Triangle, maybe Best Friends, Adam Page and
Dark Order,
most likely. Actually, with it being those three, Page and Dark Order, I don't see a shift in the importance of the trios to the tag team championship.
Well, here's what even just scared me. You named 6 trios teams. What tag teams can we name right now? That even, it's almost like, and all of those, for the most part, except for House of Black, were tag teams that now become trios. So it is your point, and they were elite teams. I mean, think about, you had the Lucha Brothers, who now you add a pack. Now that's Death Triangle. At one point, Dark Order was considered a tag team that was looking for tag titles. So it's and Best Friends as well. So it's now like the shift really did happen, where now we can name 6 teams that could potentially compete for the trios tag titles.
Right.
And who can we name that would battle? That is our problem.
They're gonna start pulling tag teams out of like the JAS or Stokely's new faction. That's where else are they gonna get people from?
And those folks really aren't deemed or viewed as elite as the folks that are in the trio space.
Yeah, very true, very true. No one apart from the Acclaimed, and I guess that's because of how popular they are.
Right.
Can be seen as legitimate tag team champions
who
are not now in a trio. In a trio, there's literally no one else. Private Party, forget about it. I don't know who else is even attacked. Gun Club, they've already forget about them. Just
right.
Why would they even here? You've got the Varsity Blondes. No,
nah. This is bad.
I mean, the Varsity Blondes lost in a squash match to the Gun Club.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? You've got no one left. So I don't see any kind of potential teams or people you can put together. There's literally no one. So it's extremely worrying. Extremely worrying. As to what Swerve and Lee now do, how they move forward. Does this thing with the Acclaimed even continue? It does not look good for this tag team division, this tag team itself, the tag team champions. I just don't know where we're going. Another team, another duo that was a team that looked like they could have been tag team champions, but are now the worst of friends, or worst of enemies, should I say, is Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs.
Mhm.
Now, we saw the match between them, and what was very interesting was how dominant Powerhouse Hobbs was
Mhm.
in this match in general. Powerhouse Hobbs came away with the win. I don't think many people expected that.
Mhm.
And with the way it was done, it's very interesting. Mex, what do you think is the next steps for both guys? Because I know we've talked about it before. We thought this was going to be, the stepping stone for Ricky Starks to do his own thing and move on and blah, blah, blah. But that's not happening. Are we now expecting this to carry on and then shift, or is this all about Hobbs?
I think it carries on just because of how dominant Hobbs was, but I agree that Hobbs winning was the right decision. Like, definitely in the first instance, Hobbs is the guy that more so will need help coming out of this than Starks.
Right.
Like, Starks will land on his feet. They may somewhere down the line have some type of street fight or stipulation based match where Starks can use some foreign objects to actually beat Hobbs and it's believable and stuff like that. So I think this was done right. This was a pay-per-view that had far too many matches. This one was actually deserved to be on it because there's some heat behind it, but ultimately they used it as an opportunity to put over Hobbs strong and just kind of make quick work of Starks. I don't know, beyond Starks, how they're going to treat Hobbs. They don't have a very good track record with big guys. I've said that he should beat Wardlow or at least face Wardlow for that TNT championship. But if he wins, I don't think they're gonna book him any better than they're booking Wardlow right now. So it's a bit confusing. Don't quite have sight of where his future could go. But Starks, we know it's all just a matter of time. But Hobbs has done really well since the split anyway.
Gerard, what do you think would what do you think happens with Starks from here? As I said, we expected it to be, Starks is the one that comes out on top, and we keep it moving. Where does Starks go from here? Or what needs to happen with Starks for us to kind of maybe keep this momentum that kind of started?
Well, I definitely think this is going to be a longer program than what we just saw to build both of them, right? I think they both end up benefiting from this. I think they end up getting some longer matches, which gives us the opportunity to show what Starks can do. But the thing is, I think we already view Starks as a star.
Yeah.
So at this point, it's okay. He gets a couple of wins under his belt, but we viewed him as a star for a long time. And him now breaking away from Team Taz actually proves that. So if he gets a few more wins under his belt, we'll really refer to him as a star. But I think he's going to be more of a star because of what he can say, not what he can do. He's a talker. He's got charisma. He's got a great personality. It was literally a 2-minute interview that made everybody go, yo, how do you come off of a loss where you're the heel and we end up loving you, right? That's what he's able to do. And so I think if they can tap into that some more, we'll really get to see the star power. And honestly, I think before Powerhouse Hobbs gets that title shot, Ricky Starks should get that TNT title shot. And if he becomes a TNT champion, I think we're going to have a good run with him.
Oh, Starks as TNT champion is what we're waiting for. For me, that is what we're waiting for. How it happens,
Agreed.
I don't know. Who he beats eventually, whatever else, I have no idea. But Starks as the TNT champion would just be the absolute pinnacle for me.
One of them needs to beat the other.
I was going to say, what if this rolls to Powerhouse Hobbs winning the TNT title and then Starks taking the title from Hobbs? That'll be a bigger move, I think.
That would be major. That would be major. Speaking of big personalities, and let's get to this real quick. Obviously, there was Worlds Collide as well.
At Carmelo Hayes.
NXT Worlds Collide. Carmelo Hayes defeats Ricochet. A very different exchange that I didn't expect it to. I expected it to be a lot more fast paced, but I love the way it was very end to end, kind of very matched up between the two of them. Carmelo comes away beating a SmackDown superstar, a former US champion, a former Intercontinental champion, a former North American champion. What are we now going to do with Carmelo Hayes? Because, mate, we're waiting too long to pull the trigger and either put him on the main roster or have him win this NXT championship. What are we doing? What are we doing?
I have no answer for you. I don't know what he's still doing here.
Right.
Like he's obviously doing good for the show and stuff like that. But yeah, it was awesome, absolutely awesome to see Solo get called up.
Yes.
But this is Carmelo is of that ilk, if not better than Solo. Like these men are ready. Don't make them overstay their welcome in NXT. NXT's not that place anymore. Like let's get them in developmental. If they're good enough, move them up. Like it's literally like, come on, like I might have to start a timer in the corner of the screen of how many days from now it takes Carmelo to move up to the main roster, because
I love
now,
that.
like, he's proven everything. Like I don't even think I asked this on Twitter the other day, and people said, "Oh, maybe the NXT title or stuff." This is the NXT's title, as far as I'm concerned. Like he doesn't need that title no more.
That's true. That's true. Gerard, what are you thinking?
Yeah. You know, everybody's asking who's left for Roman to beat. I'm asking who's left for Carmelo to beat.
Right.
I mean, it's like that. Carmelo Hayes has proven that you don't need to be the NXT champion to be the face of the brand. After that match, and as great as Worlds Collides was, and I enjoyed it, but nothing could follow that match. Nothing could follow that match. That match was incredible. So honestly, to answer your question, I think I have a reason why they're waiting to bring him up. I don't think it's them waiting on Carmelo. I think they're waiting to make SmackDown and Raw a place where Carmelo would properly fit. Because think about this. When Ciampa showed up, when Pete Dunne showed up, yes, I called him Pete Dunne. When they showed up, what was problematic for me was the environment there made them look super small. And I'm like, how does Pete Dunne go from being champion for 675 days to looking like a little schoolboy? That's because it is a monstrous land. So they have to somewhat reduce the land so that when these guys come in, it makes sense, because Carmelo cannot afford to be wasted on Raw or SmackDown. So I think they're trying to get that landscape right so that when he comes in, it makes sense for him, because there's nobody left. I mean, even if he takes the NXT championship, he's going to do more for that title than that title will do for him. So at this point, he's the man. We know it. We're not watching Braun Breaker. Like we don't care. It is it's the Carmelo Hayes show, period. And I think they're just trying to get Raw and SmackDown ready for him.
If I'm very honest, for me, like I Carmelo Hayes is the North American champion. He's not the main champion, but yet we always talk about him. I remember a time when a certain someone by the name of Shawn Michaels was the Intercontinental champion. And that's who we talked about all the time during that period.
Agreed.
I see Carmelo being that guy. There are a couple of us within the main roster at the moment who could do this, but I see Carmelo being that guy who makes that, whether it be the US or the Intercontinental Championship, the talked about championship again. Bobby Lashley's doing great things with the US, but it's kind of there's a ceiling that is hit that it's just not going past, especially with dealing with the Miz. It's not gonna go as great as the Miz made the Intercontinental at one point. It's not gonna go so far. The whole thing with Gunther and Sheamus, great match, but it's not necessarily doing anything for the title itself. Great match between the two of them, it makes them two look great, but the title, I'm not too sure. It's not really doing anything. Bring in someone like Carmelo Hayes, then you'll see that shift that we want, to where one of those titles is now the prestigious. This is what I want to make, to bring me to a level. This is the one that I need to reach for. Whereas now everyone just wants the world championship. No one really cares about necessarily wanting the mid card or whatever else. I think Carmelo would be that guy. He's already obviously very much shown that with the North American Championship. So I think you're very right, Gerard. And I was thinking this myself just a few days ago, with Ciampa kind of getting a bit of a push. Gargano returned. Ricochet's kind of had a bit more to do on TV, you know, and this is now Triple H, you know, with his hands on his NXT guys again.
Yes.
So, and NXT didn't fit the main roster in exactly the same way that you're saying. You've got the big guys on the main roster. You've got the smaller guys. You can't see Ciampa beating Roman Reigns.
Right.
That doesn't work.
Right.
Ciampa beating even Bobby Lashley, who's holding the US Championship. You know, some of them beating Gunther, it kind of doesn't really work.
Right.
So yeah, the landscape has to change a little bit. It's very interesting and so encouraging to think that the landscape of WWE has to change for Carmelo and not you. That
exactly
is crazy. It's crazy. Just to go back just a little bit to what Mick said about Solo coming into the main roster, it was very easy for that to happen. That was already going to happen. We kind of knew that was already going to happen. I think it was actually the plan before he actually went to NXT. So that makes sense. But at the same time, you know, yeah, let's be done with the wait. Let's just throw this guy on the main roster and in some way, somehow, maybe through the draft, maybe it'll take a bit of time. As Gerard said, certain things may need to change a little bit. But I'm just worried about what now happens with him on NXT. What do we do for the next few months with him on NXT? I don't think there's much more.
Well, I think if you keep some of those UK guys around, like a match with him and Tyler Bate, you see what I mean? Like, I think there's still some potential to let this thing ride out for a bit. That would keep us in, because here's the thing: he has elevated his game so much that you have to become elite to actually step in the ring with Carmelo Hayes at this point. So that means that's going to cause a lot of the NXT guys to pull their weight up. And to think, you just pulled Ricochet, and this wasn't 6 months ago Ricochet. This is the Ricochet that's on the comeback, the Ricochet that's been winning, that's been doing. So they put on a clinic. Who's going to follow that? And if I'm in NXT, I'm like, don't give me Carmelo. He's too good for me. True.
And the only other guy for me who was very much believable to beating him is now on the main roster, back with Imperium. Giovanni.
Yes. What a match. But see, that's what I'm saying. Another amazing match, right? Like, he just keeps having these bangers, and it's like, who can hang?
Apollo Crews, maybe,
but Crews keeps losing.
True.
So
it should have been Vinci.
Yeah.
Or they should have circled back around to Solo. Obviously, Solo never really getting his chance, and Solo should have done it. But Solo's gone now. Vinci looks like he's rejoined Imperium, so he's going to hold the belt for a bit longer. Yeah.
So very good move. Very, very good move. Perfect move. Guys, with that, we've gone past our time already, like way past our time. This has been WrstlXtra. You are watching on the WrestleManiac UK YouTube channel, listening on AffinityExtra.com. Guys, of course, as always, follow this guy, Mex, the WrestleManiac, at WrestleManiac UK on YouTube. Like, follow, subscribe, hit that notification bell, because this guy's going to have some exclusive stuff from Clash at the Castle as well. The vlog, some interviews with some of the stars. Let's go. I'm not going to watch because I'm just going to watch it with jealous and envious eyes. You lot can watch it. I'll definitely watch it. Of course, you can follow this guy, Gerard Bonner, Bonafide on everything, and of course, the Faction Show as well. He's another busy man. These guys are taking all the spots, so this is why I'm sitting back and just waiting for my chance.
In the world, you've been killing it.
Listen, these guys are the hardest working guys that I know. Guys, you can follow me, Black Wrestling Alliance on Instagram, or BWA Dazzle on Twitter. This has been our time. We will see you again next time, folks. Peace. See you later.